Starting off our list at number 10 is Katherine Heigl. We gotta be honest here and say there's probably a few interviews that affected her career, but one back in 2008 pretty much landed her on Hollywood's blacklist. She took the lead in the 2006 movie Knocked Up, and the movie, as well as her performance, was well received. Apparently not by the actress herself though, who opened up about how she felt about the movie later on in 2008. In the January issue of Vanity Fair, she said the movie was, I quote, a little sexist. It paints women as shrews, as humorless and uptight, and it paints the men as lovable, goofy, fun-loving guys. It exaggerated the characters, and I had a hard time with it some days. Why is this how you're portraying women? This interview alone was enough for people in Hollywood to turn away from wanting to work with her, but it was sealed when she did another interview in 2008 where she dissed the writing in her show Grey's Anatomy. The actress has to figure out a way to either keep her mouth shut or just choose her words wisely.
I'm not a rude person. I'm not an unkind or mean person. I would never go out of my way or consciously try to hurt anyone's feelings or make them feel bad or uncomfortable or not be professional and do my job. I like my job.
And at number 9 is Paula Abdul. Back in January 2007, the American Idol judge did an interview that went viral instantly. Throughout the video, which happened to be filmed, she slurred her words, wobbled, swayed, and spoke a bunch of nonsense, basically. News anchors from Q13 Fox News Live streamed Paula from New York to do a live interview with her, but because of how she was acting, they thought there was some sort of connection issue.
Oh, I don't know if she can hear us right now.
They kept saying there must be a problem and that she can't hear them properly, but that wasn't really the case at all. Even when she did respond to their questions, she was acting like she was highly intoxicated. She was closing her eyes, slurring her words, just acting kind of all manic and weird. Later, she tried to explain, saying there was a connection error at first, and they had a station from Alabama in her ear along with the Fox News at the same time. But once they fixed it, she blamed the rest of the erratic behavior on just being tired. She said fatigue and exhaustion just added to the whole thing, looking so disoriented. But no alcohol and no drugs. Absolutely no. The interview had a huge effect on her career. 2 years later, she wasn't able to land another contract with American Idol. The world didn't see much of her for years until she snagged a judging role on So You Think You Can Dance. However, her career just hasn't been the same ever since. Sliding into the number 8 spot on our list is 5 Seconds of Summer. Back in 2015, the band managed to alienate both their fans and a lot of fellow artists and celebrities in just one interview, and since then the world hasn't heard much of them since. In December 2015, their interview with Rolling Stone left people really pissed off. Michael Clifford, who admitted during the interview that he was hungover, bashed the American Music Awards, which they performed at the night before. He said the show was compromised and had, I quote, a lot of fake people. He also called out Justin Bieber and said he thinks he hates them, for no apparent reason at all. Luke Hemmings from the band left fans and parents feeling disgusted after saying, when you put 4 young dudes on a tour bus playing theaters then arenas, you're going to have sex with a lot of girls, I guess. We had a good time. The interviewer awkwardly joked back, asking if they slept with multiple girls in one night or at the same time, and he responded with, I feel like I shouldn't say. You can say the possibility of that is high. People were pretty repulsed by their interview, and things just haven't been the same for their stardom since that day.
In at number 7, Jesse Eisenberg.
Do you know the comedian Carey?
Yes. Horrible.
You were like the Carrot Top of interviewers. No, and it's a good thing. It's
I'm
a good
gonna
thing.
go cry now.
No, don't cry now.
While promoting the film Now You See Me, Jesse Eisenberg just could not contain his utter disdain for this interview. Right out of the gate, he was on the offensive. The interviewer refers to Morgan Freeman as simply Freeman, for which Jesse takes offense to. Oddly enough, he then, as you saw, remarks she's the Carrot Top of interviewing, which insults the interviewer so bad that she hurries Jesse to complete a magic trick just so that they can wrap it up. And the entire interview is just one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen, and this is only number 7 on the list. Trust me though, if you haven't watched this full interview, you must. You must do it. It is just a terrible exchange back and forth between an actor and a vlogger, essentially.
And at number 6 is Miles Teller. The actor had a promising career, especially after his role in Whiplash back in 2014. But it was after an interview in 2015 where his career took a hit and began to stall. In August 2015, he did an interview with Esquire, and he thought it would be appropriate to tell the female writer and their waitress that the bar glass was modeled after his private parts. He obviously used a much more vulgar term, but I'm definitely not going to repeat it. He was pretty sassy too, trying to demand the writer to cut his meat for him when their food came. The interview didn't paint the actor in a very positive light and says that things were changed around. After receiving tons of backlash from it, he told Vulture, I quote, "If how that story made me look was how I really was, I'd think I was the biggest douchebag too. I know who I am, and it's not who I was in that story." Since then, he hasn't been able to book movies like he used to and has only about 6 credits to his IMDb in the last 4 years. Some of you might not even heard of any of them. Halfway through the list, at number 5 is Jerry Seinfeld. Fans were shook when the hit TV series Seinfeld came to an end, and everyone was pointing the finger at Jerry, wondering what exactly happened. He didn't like that very much, and he lost his cool on Larry King back in 2007 when he asked him about it during an interview. He was live on CNN for the interview and was actually there to promote his new project, B-Movie. Larry ends up asking him if he canceled the show or if the network canceled him. A pretty standard question to ask since the show was around for so many years and was coming to an end all of a sudden. But rather than simply answering him, he got extremely offended and started to become a bit ignorant. He made it clear that he had 75 million viewers and that it was his choice to quit. Larry tries to move on from the question when he sees his response, but Jerry continues to interrupt him, even to a point where he can't cut to a commercial break when he is supposed to.
75 million viewers last episode.
What, you don't take it so bad.
Well, that's the big difference between being canceled and being number 1.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He even says the famous line, "Do you know who I am?"
Do you know who I am?
Jewish guy, Brooklyn.
Yes.
Okay.
Fans responded to the interview saying that he overreacted and could have simply just answered the question gracefully. There was no point to prove. We clearly all know that your show was a success. Here we are at number 4 with Gary Coleman. The actor sadly passed away at just 42 years old, so this is in no way to disrespect him, but to share what happened leading up to his very controversial death. The actor always had medical issues, but often didn't like to speak on them. On May 26, 2010, the actor fell down the stairs while at home with his wife and had to go to the hospital after cracking his head. He was treated, but the next day he went unconscious and landed on life support, where he died on May 28th. People were suspicious as to what actually happened, and rumors began to fly saying that his wife had actually pushed him down the stairs. Now, the only reason that they thought this was because they went to court after she accused him of physically abusing her. The couple was always known for their altercations and even appeared on the show Divorce Court. This is what led to Gary having an interview that impacted his career in a very negative way. One of the female hosts on The Insider asked him if he abuses his wife, and when he wouldn't flat out deny it, she begins to question if it's true or not, and that's basically when he lost it. He ended up saying to her, I quote, "Go F yourself. I don't know you, I don't care about you, your life doesn't matter to me. If you get hit by a bus tonight, I'm not going to care."
There is no abuse that goes on in my house. Now, if people believe that I'm waffling, then they can go do what they need to do.
Did you abuse your wife? Did you abuse her? Did you lay your hand on her?
And you know what? You can go the same place.
Then he storms off the set and tells all of the hosts to go themselves. People were stunned by his anger and reaction, and he wasn't very well received after that.
In at number 3, Robert Downey Jr. This guy again. You remember that interviewer from earlier that was just a little too pushing? Well, he's back again, but this time with RDJ. And didn't I tell you folks earlier that he was known for just having the worst interviewers? I mean, this guy should be questioning politicians, not actors, about their upcoming movies. He goes way too deep with Robert Downey Jr. in this interview, to the point where Robert Downey Jr. just says, you know what, we're done here.
What are we doing?
Well, I'm just asking questions, that's all.
Right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oof, that slapped so hard it felt like a movie. Speaking of slaps, when Downey stands up to leave, he gives Krishnan a very hard pat on the shoulder as if to say, good work, you dummy. The reason why he got so upset was because these questions virtually came out of left field. He went from asking him about superhero movies to Robert's, let's say, tumultuous past.
In at number 2 is Charlie Sheen. He has a list of things that all play a factor on why his career came to an end. One of them was his ridiculous and totally inappropriate behavior during his interview with ABC when he confessed to still being on drugs. Actually, when he asked if he still uses drugs, his exact response was, I am on a drug. It's called Charlie Sheen. It is not available. If you try it once, you will die. Your face will melt off and your children will weep over your exploded body. He went on to talk about sleeping with prostitutes and said that they are the best best at what they do and has no problem admitting that part of his sex life. The entire interview is manic and whack, but no one could ever forget his famous line when asked about how he survived his huge drug binges. He responded with, "I have tiger blood in my veins." Since then, it's been an ongoing joke, along with his career. However, rumor has it that he has sobered up and it's possible he will be making a comeback. Taking the number 1 spot on our list is Reid, only because it was so shocking. The sweet blonde shocked the world after showing up drunk to an interview, or so it appeared. Back in August 2018, she did an interview with Today Extra on Australia's Channel 9 to promote her movie The Last Sharknado. But throughout the interview, she was slurring her words, spoke very quietly, and often just trailed off. When you watch it, there's moments when you feel like she might actually fall asleep.
It really makes sense from the first one. It really does it makes a complete circle. And
after the interview, rumors started that she was drinking again, which was a problem from her past. She released a statement afterwards, not giving any kind of reasoning for her weird behavior, but insisted that people have no reason to worry about her health. However, people were still very much worried. Our list at number 10 is Jesse Eisenberg. The actor has always been called socially awkward and has always shown this not so welcoming attitude when it comes to the press. One of his awkward and demeaning interviews went viral back in 2013 when he did an interview with Romina Puga from Univision about his new movie coming out called Now You See Me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the problem with the trick is that the thumbs don't look like an end of a finger.
You just have a fat thumb though.
No, my thumb's fine, thank you, but
Romina had a few notes written on her hand so that she could remember them during the interview, and he had no problem calling her out on them, saying that she can't remember a simple question and also told her that she is a horrible interviewer.
what did you write on your hand?
Nothing.
Well, I saw there was a lot of things. What was it?
A lot of things.
Are they questions?
No.
Are you secretly hiding questions for the interview? You're wondering what it's like to work with Morgan Freeman and you can't remember that?
His exact way of saying it was, he asked her if she knew the comedian Carrot Top. She responded with, "Yes, horrible." And Jesse said, I quote, "Well, you are like the Carrot Top of interviewers." The interview awkwardly continued on, where he continued to make comments about the interview being over soon, and also said that if she was trying to find her way in a crowd, he wouldn't actually want to find her and that he'd rather be alone.
Do you know the comedian Carrot Top?
Yes, horrible.
Well, you were like the Carrot Top of interviewers.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. No, and it's a good thing. It's
I'm
a
gonna
good
go
thing.
cry now.
No, don't cry now. Cry after the interview's over.
Well, isn't he just a ray of sunshine? People haven't received his interviews very well, and the majority of them can't get on board with his whole attitude and behavior. In at number 9 is Paris Hilton. This interview was more of a chance for her to have a comeback in her career, which was already destroyed, but she just kind of blew it. After her career started to fade out, we didn't really hear much from her until 2011 when she signed up for an interview with ABC, which was meant to give us a look into her life and what she's up to now. The interview took place at her home, which started out great. We got to see her home, her dogs, and she just seemed to be in good spirits. That was until the reporter, Dan Harris, began to question whether her celebrity status was running out and being taken over by her close friend, Kim Kardashian. He worded it as nicely as possible, but she just couldn't handle the thought of it. He brought up the fact that her show called The World According to Paris had received a low rating and asked if that upsets her. You could clearly tell that it does, but she responds simply by just saying no. She begins to talk to her publicist, who is standing offset, saying that she wants to be done with the interview. She ends up walking off, but her mic was still on, and she told her publicist that she doesn't want any of this footage being used.
Do you ever worry about your moment having passed? You want to wrap up?
When I was curious about one thing going back to...
So, what do you guys think? Do you think she was acting like a diva by giving one-word answers and leaving? Tell me down in the comments. Next up at number 8 is John Mayer. Back in 2010, he did an interview with Playboy where he sparked a heated debate among his fans, and people lost a lot of respect for him. His relationships with stars like Jessica Simpson have all been documented in the tabloids, but he dished on their relationship in a very strange and disrespectful way. When asked about his ex, Jessica, he started to speak about their sex life, saying that she was like crack cocaine to him. Sexually. He said he wanted to snort her and would sell his belongings even if she charged him $10,000 to sleep with her. He continues to share how many people he's been sleeping with since the breakup, and says he also spends a lot of his mornings watching porn in bed. If the sex talk wasn't enough to set off his fans, his comments about race would. He said, "I'm just very. And if you can't handle my very, then I'm a douchebag. That's why black people love me." He went on to say that he gets a hood pass and refers to them as the N-word. Immediately after his interview was published, it caused tons of controversy where he was called an asshat hat and became a trending topic, but not for the reasons that you really want to be trending. Next up at number 7 is R. Kelly. He did some major damage for his career back in 2008 when he made comments about being with underage girls. But this interview came after he went to trial for being accused of child pornography. Kelly was accused of making a 27-minute sex tape with an underage female, but after going to trial, the jury declared him not guilty on all 14 counts. People were all feeling some type of way about him, some believed him and some didn't. But his interview after the trial didn't help paint a very good self-portrait. During an interview with BET, he was straight up asked, "Do you like teenage girls?" After everything that went on with Kourt, you would think his response would be an immediate no. However, he responded by saying, "When you say teenage, how young are we talking?" He went on to say that he has some 19-year-old female friends, but none that are technically illegal. After the interview was aired on BET, Kelly's team saw it and demanded that it never be shown again. It was already too late though, the damage had already been done.
This is not me, y'all. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my.
At number 6 is Joan Rivers. The woman is known to be a harsh critic when it comes to her time on Fashion Police, but is it harsh if it's true? That is the real debate. Some people appreciate her brutal honesty, while others think that it's just straight up rude, which is the main reason why she went into a rage and walked out in the middle of a CNN interview back in 2014. She was doing a live stream interview with CNN host Frederica Whitfield, who started off by joking around saying that her show Fashion Police was mean, and that was enough to trigger Rivers. Everything from that moment on just escalated very quickly. CNN asked her why she fights to end animal cruelty while she still wears fur, and her response was, "Are you wearing leather shoes? Then shut up."
The cover of your book, you're wearing a fur, and you knew that there would probably be animal rights activists.
You know, this whole interview is becoming a defensive interview.
No!
Are you wearing leather shoes?
Yes,
shut up.
She then continued to go on a rant saying that the interview is turning into a defensive one, and she insults the lady one last time before storming off set. She said, "You are not the one to interview a person who does humor. Sorry," and rips off her earpiece before leaving.
And you do this, and you're mean, and you're that. You are not the one to interview a person who does humor. Sorry.
Are we serious?
However, she didn't turn off her microphone, and after leaving the set, they recorded her calling the host the C word. Her exit strategy wasn't thought out very well.
In at number 5, Jim Carey. At the New York Fashion Week in 2017, Jim Carey made a rare appearance, and while walking down the red carpet, he did his best to avoid an interview with E! News. At first, he tried to kind of twirl around a few times and not really stand still, hoping that that would work, but she was persistent. Carey then says he wanted to find the most meaningless event that he could go to, and that's how he ended up there. The interviewer, trying to keep the integrity of this event high, claims that it's a celebration of icons, for which Jim says, "Icons don't exist. I don't believe in personalities. I don't believe you exist. But there is a wonderful fragrance in the air." And before departing from this awkward interview, he leaves her with this little nugget of truth.
Is relevant, that's not that
Here's
uplifting.
the thing, it's not our world.
None
That's
of this
the
is
key.
real?
Nope.
So you're just passing
We don't
through.
matter.
Alright you guys, at number 4 we have Mel Gibson. Are you shocked? No, didn't think so. He's known for having anger issues, and the majority of them it has been well documented through audio recordings or videos, so it's not like I'm just assuming all of this. One of his interviews went viral back in 2010 when we got to see a piece of his angry side come out. He was doing a live stream interview with WGN News, and the reporter Dean Richards asked him about some incidents from his past, like his alcohol use and bad temper. 4 years prior to the interview, he was arrested and got a DUI, so he asked if he feels the public would receive him differently now. Mel was outraged by the question, which he showed by the expression on his face. He responded by saying, "That's almost 4 years ago, dude. I mean, I've moved on. I guess you haven't." He ends up continuing and says, "Let's move on, dude, come on." He doesn't say goodbye or anything as Dean ends the interview. He just gives a thumbs up and sips his coffee. And right after the interview ends, he calls Dean an not knowing that the video was still recording.
It's good to see you back in the saddle and doing what you do best. Thanks a lot for joining us, Mel. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Alright guys, at number 3 is Megan Fox. It is no surprise to anyone anymore that her career started to fizzle away after the Transformers incident when she publicly bashed the director. In 2009, Fox told Wonderland that the director of the film series, Michael Bay, is, I quote, "like Napoleon, and he wants to create this insane, infamous madman reputation. He wants to be like Hitler on his sets, and he is." She went on to call him a nightmare to work with and said that he has no skills at all. As a result from her interview remarks, she was fired fired from Transformers: Dark Side of the Moon and was only booking smaller roles and cameos. It wasn't until she later apologized to Bay that she was allowed back in the director's blockbuster movies, which is how she got to start in his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise. However, Bay told GQ it was actually Steven Spielberg who demanded that he hire Fox, and added that she may not have been the most professional actress on set. I thought Michael Bay was someone you don't want to be on bad terms with, but if the real issue is Steven Spielberg, that's even worse. At number 2 on our list is Roseanne Barr. She had an incredibly successful career, but it crumbled after she tweeted out some racist comments. She lost everything, including her ABC sitcom called Roseanne. She tweeted out a comment where she compared Barack Obama's advisor, Valerie Jarrett, to a character from Planet of the Apes and linked her to a group called Muslim Brotherhood. During an interview with Inside, she spoke about the incident with a cigarette in hand and lost all control of her emotions and began to scream. Like literally scream. She went off the rails yelling, "I thought the was white." She continues to scream out different curse words and in between takes a puff from her cigarette, maybe in hopes to try and calm down, which clearly didn't work.
I thought the was white! Damn it!
This is her back? Seriously?
Throughout the interview, she looks totally out of it and at time asks the producer, "Are you filming?" The producer can't help but laugh at her erratic behavior and just keeps repeating himself, telling her that she's already explained this to them 300 times, but she just keeps going on about it, and not gracefully. Taking our number 1 spot is Michael Jackson. Over 10 years ago, he was charged on different allegations of child sexual abuse that were filed against him. A documentary about his life, including these charges, was released and showed an interview where he made inappropriate comments that left people stunned. When speaking about his own children, he admitted during an interview that he allowed their friends to come over and sleep in his bed with him. Ain't nothing normal about that. He explained that he doesn't see any problem with it because, I quote, "It's all very charming." The interviewer was baffled that he would be saying these things considering the allegations that were against him, but Michael stood firm on his beliefs and referred to the young children as his friends. He simply didn't see anything wrong with a grown man being friends with young children. After hearing these things come out of the singer's mouth himself, his reputation was never really the same after that.
In at number 10, Quentin Tarantino.
So it's my job to try and ask you to.
And I'm shutting your butt down.
And that's entirely your.
What a line! I'm shutting your butt down. Quentin Tarantino was having none of this interviewer's questions, but still tried to go along with it. He kept his cool for about 3 minutes before the gloves started to come off. The journalist's name is Krishnan Gurumurthy, and he has become notorious for asking celebrities the most awkward and really big questions about themselves, their past, and their work. Stuff that would be better suited for a 3-hour podcast or an episode of 60 Minutes. However, during these press junkets where they're only doing the interview to sell their film, it's hardly the place or time. In at number 9, Cara Delevingne. Let's just say her dry British humor was not really received by these happy-go-lucky morning news anchors at CBS Sacramento. At the start of the interview, she was asked some very dumb questions. For example, the film Paper Towns was based on a book, so they asked her if she had read the book, and then immediately after made a snide comment about her probably not having enough time to read. Cara obviously takes offense to this judging by her body language, but instead decides to flip it into a joke, saying that she didn't even read the script, just winged the whole thing. The interviewers actually take this as factual for a moment before her laughing finally cuts the tension. And that's not even the most awkward part of this interview though.
I think it probably is us. Well then on that note,
We figured as much.
We'll let you go then. How about that? We'll let you go take a little nap, maybe get a Red Bull. How about that?
After one interviewer asked her why she isn't as excited as her other interviews, she remarks that it's very early and that she thought it was going well, so again, jokingly she says it must be you. And the interviewer in the middle, like, oh my god, she sounded so bitter. That line of, well, we'll let you go take a little nap and have a Red Bull, how about that? Yes, how about that level of professional journalism? Good job, Good Morning Sacramento. In at number 8, Kourtney Kardashian. After her sister Kim was robbed in Paris, Today Extra, an Australian news outlet, was interviewing Kourtney via satellite from Los Angeles.
Okay.
They asked her how Kim was doing following this traumatic event, but suddenly Kourtney's face just freezes. You then can sort of hear what sounds like her publicist saying, "Do not answer that question."
Looks like Kourtney doesn't really want to go there with
I think
that
she's
question.
blanking me. I think she's totally blanking me on that question.
I think there's probably a PR person there saying, you know, don't talk about it.
The interviewer then goes on a bit of a rant saying that she could simply say her sister is doing fine, as they too speculate that she was told to be quiet. However, she then does answer the question on her own, saying, "She's not doing great, I think we're all still shaken up." And her response to what appeared to be her blanking was that the audio from their end wasn't coming through.
Sliding into number 7 is Tom Cruise. We've seen him lose his temper on a few different occasions, so it's not much of a surprise that he's wound up on this list. He made comments that people didn't appreciate, like the time he criticized Brooke Shields for taking antidepressants. She took them for postpartum depression, but since Tom is a Scientologist, he doesn't believe in those kinds of drugs or therapy. So, during an interview back in June 2005 with NBC's Today Show, the reporter Matt Lauer asked him about his criticism and he didn't like that it was brought up. The actor ended up calling him a glib and told him he doesn't know what he's talking about. In anger, he said, "You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do." He continued to discuss his Scientology beliefs, which causes enough controversy in itself, and said that because Lauer admitted to using psychiatric drugs in the past, he was actually advocating the use of Ritalin and that it's wrong.
I've never agreed with psychiatry, ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry. And then when I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more why I didn't agree with psychiatry.
His anger, defensive mechanism, and attitude isn't a shock really, but it just still isn't necessary.
In at number 6, Samuel L. Jackson. When you are interviewing a celebrity as big as Samuel L. Jackson, it's imperative that you do your homework. You know, like learn his name. When Sam Jackson was promoting the RoboCop remake, he was asked about a recent Super Bowl commercial he did. Sam replies, "What Super Bowl commercial?" and then hits KTLA reporter Sam Rubin with this.
What Super Bowl commercial?
Oh, you know what? I've been my mistake.
See, you're as crazy as the people on Twitter.
Jackson then proceeds to say, "I'm not Lawrence Fishburne. We don't all look alike. We may be all black and famous, but we all don't look alike." And Rubin repeatedly apologizes for this very public faux pas, but the damage is done and this just got super awkward. Jackson doesn't let up though. He questions Sam Rubin, saying, "You're the entertainment reporter?" To make his point known, Samuel L. Jackson posted this image on Twitter of him wearing a t-shirt that says he's not Lawrence Fishburne. You know, just to avoid any further confusion.
Halfway through the list at number 5 is the Chainsmokers. Another time when a band tried a little too hard to be edgy and just came off as super lame instead. Back in 2016, Billboard did a cover story on the band where they said things that people weren't too thrilled about. Andrew Taggart told the magazine, I quote, "We rage every night. My mom's going to hate reading that, but she already knows." But his DJ partner Alex Pal said that they were pros, saying, "But you'll never see us getting carried out of a club. We're way too good at drinking." Both band members continued on with the interview and thought it was appropriate to bring up their groupies, even though they both had live-in girlfriends at the time. Alex said even before Success was number 1. And then Andrew chimed in saying, "Like, why am I trying to make all this money? I wanted to hook up with hotter girls. I had to date a model. We're just frat bro dudes, you know what I mean? Loving ladies and stuff." And drum roll please for the worst part of the entire interview, the boys also revealed the size of their private, saying that they measured from tip to tip. Classy.
In at number 4, Dakota Johnson. This without a doubt has to be the cringe heard around the world. We got to watch the live falling out between Dakota Johnson and her mother Melanie Griffith on the red carpet of the Oscars. Oh, the Oscars. Please insert fake laughter here. Man, Hollywood is so fake. Just because the cameras are rolling, they fake laugh their way through this entirely awkward interview. And the whole thing started off on a really bad note. The interviewer praises Melanie while repeatedly calling Dakota her little girl, which she is, but it just downplays how successful she's been on her own. Then when her mother is asked if she's seen 50 Shades of Grey, her mom outright says that she wouldn't watch the movie, which clearly hurts her daughter regardless of the content and the positive reviews. A kid is always looking for that recognition from their parents.
In spot number 3 is Tracy Morgan. It's hard to forget about the interview he did in 2007 when he was clearly drunk on camera.
Ladies, my Mercedes, I'm the ooh child.
The reporter, Robert Holguin, seemed super uncomfortable and out of his element when dealing with him throughout the interview on ABC7. But he remained professional and was a good sport about it, laughing and making jokes with Tracy, who was completely out of control. Morgan took his shirt off, which ultimately ripped his microphone off, and began slapping his belly, calling it a loaf of bread, and said it was his Robert tried hard to keep the interview going and talking about his upcoming show, but Tracy was in his own little world. After the interview cut to commercial, you could hear Robert saying, "I am going to get fired."
In at number 2, Tom Hardy. If you thought that was hard to watch, just wait until you see this awkward interview with Tom Hardy. At the Toronto Film Festival during a press conference for his film Legend, he's asked by an LGBT news organization about his sexuality, claiming that while his character is upfront about it, Tom on the other hand has been much more ambiguous about his sexuality, which leads to this kind of terrible exchange. It's the epitome of awkwardness.
Are you asking me about my sexuality?
Sure.
Why?
Why?
Thank you.
Okay.
Why indeed. That thank you he gives at the end too, oof, I felt that. Last but not least, at our number 1 spot, Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld is one of the most successful comedians of all time. His show Seinfeld was on television for 9 years, and Jerry's decision to go out on top proved to be one of the most lucrative deals ever for this comedian. Since the final episode, the show has generated over $3 billion in repeat fees, but for whatever reason, Larry King thought they cancelled the show. Even though Larry King worked for CNN, he wasn't known for his hard-hitting questions, yet for whatever reason, he decided to use an interview promoting Jerry Seinfeld's B-movie to ask him if Seinfeld had been canceled.
Is this still CNN? I was the #1 show on television, Larry. Do you know who I am?
And you can see in Seinfeld's body language how frustrated he gets when Larry even tries to insinuate this. Jerry does not back down though and immediately goes on the attack, telling King that he was the #1 show on television before adding the very crass line of, "Do you know who I am? What's the deal with you not knowing who I am?"